This video outlines what you need to do to be able to pass P2 and P4. P2, complete a career plan identifying their development needs. P4, create SMART targets for the career plan. If you're wondering what RL stands for, that's for Reflective Learner, and SM stands for Self-Manager. So that's what these two criteria aim to promote in you: reflective learning and good self-management. So we already actually made a start on this task a couple of weeks ago, where you had to set your short-term and medium-term career objectives. Okay, so I've put a couple of ideas here so you can go back and look at your objectives. Were they really good enough? Now that we've done a little bit more research, have your objectives changed a little bit? We can add a little bit more depth to this template. Okay, we'll go through this step by step. So the first thing that you should have done, that you guys have already completed, is the career objectives. So here's an example of student work. We'll just go through and have a look at what they put. So their first short-term objective was to complete the Business Level 3 Extended Diploma. They also wanted to apply for universities to do accountancy and finance. And then they've discussed that in order to achieve that, they need to get these grades within this short time frame. The next objective that they've discussed is that they want to find a part-time job, so that and then they've just explained that a little bit further. In terms of improvements, these objectives should have been split up. So your first objective, complete your level 3 extended diploma. Your second objective, apply for university. Third objective is to get those grades, and you can explain how they all link together. Then having a part-time job should have been separate as an objective, and this could have been much better developed. Yes, of course you want your own money so that you can be independent, but you could also have said that you want to find something that's going to give you experience in a working environment, so that you're perhaps going to grow before you go to college. Well, we call it university here, don't we? Before you go to university. They could have discussed the sort of skills they're intending to develop. Maybe if you're wanting to go into retail and do a retail management degree, you want to specifically find a job in retail so you can get an understanding and baseline knowledge of what it's actually like. So these points could have been better organised and better developed, and I'd expect a higher standard from you guys given your capabilities. So the next thing that they've gone on to say is that they want to do an EPQ, an extended project, which is something that you do in college. So that's a short-term goal, and that's going to help them in achieving the grades they need to be able to apply to university. In terms of medium-term goals, they've said that they want to study on a sandwich course to get their degree. Again, this could have been improved a little bit. They've said that it means it's going to improve their chances of getting employed after the degree, and that they're going to be involved in a year of employment, and the experience they will get will help them. For you guys, I think you should be, if you are going on a sandwich degree, you should be thinking now specifically what type of organisations you want to work for and what you intend to gain from that. There's a lack of medium time frame goals. Other things that you could have included in there were, if you've already got a part-time job, maybe you'd like to progress to supervisor level or some sort of middle management level if you're in retail. You could have also discussed whether you want to be involved in any sort of societies in university. That always looks really good on your CV if you've been part of a society. That would have gone in the medium time frame. You can also put more personal goals in there as well on what you want to achieve. The next section is the development needs. So based on the short-term and medium-term goals that you have set, you need to identify what you specifically need to do in order to achieve those goals. So this student here has started talking about that one of the goals is to complete their college course. So they've sort of like waffled on a little bit, related it back to the UCAS points. Here, in terms of improvement, I would expect that yes, you state what grade you would like to get, but think about what you've already put in your personal SWOT analysis. So here, in terms of development, in order to achieve the grades I would like on my extended diploma, I need to improve my time management, or I need to improve my communication skills. Um, Things like that will be far more tangible than simply discussing that you need to get particular grades. Think about, well, what do I need to do to make sure I get those grades so that I achieve my goal of completing this course to a good standard. The next thing they've gone on to discuss is the UCAS application. That's something that they want to do in the short term. Again, they've said why it's important and what university that they're looking to get into. I would say to make this more concrete, they could have improved by saying I'm going to use my personal resources such as my form tutor and my business teacher to help me with the application process. I've done research. A lot of you have got really great paper-based resources from P1 that give you advice on how to fill in application forms, so you can mention that as well, and that would just make it a little bit more tangible, a little less fluffy. Another criticism of this piece of work would be that it's only covered 2 of the short-term goals in the development needs. Doesn't mention anything about the fact that they wanted to get a part-time job. So this wouldn't particularly pass. You need to make sure that you're covering all of the goals that you've set out and thinking logically, right, what do I need to do to make sure that I can achieve this? In the medium term frame, they've said that they want to get a first in their degree to be able to increase their chances of employment, which is fine if you've got a specific grade in mind that you'd like to achieve for your degree. You can state that, but think about how you're going to do it. So making sure that when you get round to doing your dissertation, that you're managing your time effectively, that you've been to the research method courses to know how to structure your work, making sure that your attendance is good at your lectures so you know what's going on, and monitoring your own progress throughout the year. At college, we monitor your progress for you, but when you get to university, it's entirely up to you to monitor your progress and your academic performance. You don't, when you submit an assignment, you don't get to resub it. You just hand it in once, and the grade you get is the grade you get, and it's your job to figure out how to improve for the next time. So maybe for medium term, if you want to achieve a first in your degree, you're going to have to really work on your self-management skills. He's then gone on to discuss that getting this work placement in university, he will gain many skills which he may have missed out previously. So it's going to give him, basically, to reword it, because this is terrible, will gain me many skills. You say, whilst I'm on my work placement, I have the opportunity to develop skills that I might not have necessarily developed through college. He said that he'll also be able to be more confident. He's basically here just discussed the benefit of achieving his short-term goal, his medium-term goal, but that's not what this question is asking you. It's asking you, what do you need to learn and be aware of in order to accomplish that goal? So here, really, what he should have been discussing is that to go on work placement, he needs to improve his interview skills, because all the placements have quite rigorous interview processes. He's going to have to develop his confidence in order to be able to do that. He's going to have to make sure that he's performing well on his university course, which, as we've said, you can link that back into self-management quite well. He's then gone on to discuss that in the past 2 years he's done 2 different types of work experience, and he's learnt many useful skills to support him in the future. This discussion here would have been more appropriate with saying how he's going to get onto his work placement, and he should have gone on to think about, how can I further that? This is what I've done, how can I make it better to make sure that I get that work placement? So this piece of work, very substandard, probably wouldn't pass it. I've given you a couple of ideas of what you'd need to do to make it passable. We're not looking for waffle here. You need to be putting specific things that you can do. And to be honest, you've already covered this in P5 and M3. You should have lots of ideas to put into this section. Okay, so this is the final section. Please be aware that this is not model answer work. I'm showing you how, if your work is at this standard, how you can improve it. So please don't look at this and just copy it. So the changes to initial plan box, the whole idea of this project that we're doing is that you're conducting research and that you're going through this journey of figuring out what it is you want to do. Really don't be alarmed if you've completely changed your mind, because the more research and the more information you get, you're obviously going to make a logical decision, and the first thing that pops into your head that you want to do with your life, it's not going to be the best thing to just go crack on without being well informed about it. Some of you might still be intending on doing the same thing, and that's fine, but I can imagine a lot of you have probably ummed and ahed and changed your mind slightly. So this is the box where you basically discuss that. This student is what has done what I fear quite a few of you guys might have done. And as they've gone along and changed their mind, they've tinkered with this template to make it look as if they've been wanting to do that all along. If you've done that, it's going to make it really difficult for you to complete this box properly. Those original goals that you set at the beginning of the year, don't touch them. Don't tweak with them at all. If you've changed your mind, you put it in this box. So this student has said here that originally they wanted to study law at university. That should have been in their original objectives. He's explained that he changed his mind to accountancy and finance. This would be absolutely perfect had he have not tinkered with his original objectives, so he needs to go back and change that. But this bit is a fine discussion for this particular box. He's discussing that after he went to speak to the careers advisor. He changed his mind about what he wanted to do. He's also talked about the EPQ. I'm assuming that even though he set it in his original objectives, it wasn't something he originally had in mind. So after he did his research, he realised that he could get these additional new CAS points and has decided to move forward with that. So this student needs to go and take the EPQ out of the short-term objectives because they weren't his original objectives. But everything in this box in terms of the discussion is perfectly fine, but he's let himself down because he's decided to tinker with the original objectives, which you do not need to do. In terms of the medium time frame, he said that he's looking to get into employment after he's finished his degree. He wants to go on and do a chartered accountancy to help him increase his chances of employment. So basically, the more research he's done, he's been more able to figure out what he needs to do in order to achieve his overall career goal. That's what he's saying here. As he's doing a 4-year sandwich course, 1 year is going to be a work placement, and this is going to give him experience of gaining knowledge and understanding how real life works. To make this acceptable for the changes to initial plan box, what he should have done is state that originally he wasn't intending on doing a sandwich degree. Then, after the research, he's decided he wants to do this work placement. So what we've been through so far with this example work is not passable based on the fact that he's just tinkered with his original objectives. So if you know that's you, then you need to go back and change that and make sure that your original objectives are the set things at the beginning of the year that you thought you wanted to achieve, and that in your changes to initial plan box you put in all the things you've now decided that you want to change or additional things you want to do based on the research that you've conducted, based on the P1, based on looking at your own personal strengths and weaknesses and trying to figure out what's right for you. The next section of the template asks you to set some SMART targets. So before we take a look at the template, I'm just going to show you what SMART targets are and give you an example. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant and time-bound. Put an example of a SMART target here. Complete Business Extended BTEC to a DMM standard by July 2016. When you write it in your template, I suggest you put these little headings so that you can double check that your targets are actually SMART. So this is specific because this goal is targeted to a specific course. Some of you are completing several different courses, but this one is for the extended, so it's people who just do business. So it's specific to a course. It's measurable because you can measure your progress towards meeting this target through monitoring BTEC trackers and setting interim deadlines and goals for different units. This is something that you might like to consider doing on CEDA. It's attainable based on this person's performance last year and their current target grade. It's relevant to the career plan because they need to be able to achieve this to get into university, and that's what they want to do overall. And it's time bound because it's got a timed deadline by July 2016. So this is the sort of stuff that we're looking for in your SMART targets section. When you're setting your SMART targets, you should base them on the original objectives if you're sticking with those original objectives, or base them on what you've put in your changes to initial plan. So we're moving forward with it. Some of your objectives might be the same, some of them might be different. You just need to outline them here and make sure that you're explaining how they're SMART targets. Here's a couple of examples of what this student's put. I would expect a minimum of 3 short-term targets and 3 medium-term targets in this work. Some of you guys might have already set some SMART targets because we're all working on this project at different paces. That being the case, you'll already know whether there's been any changes over the last couple of weeks. So it could be that you've changed your mind again on what course you want to do, or you've decided that you don't want to go to university, or that you don't want to do an apprenticeship, anything like that. You can put in this changes to initial plan box. I'm going to go through and talk to you about what this student has put. Unfortunately, he missed the deadline for UCAS. Therefore, there's been a change to the plan because he's going to have to do it by a different time scale. So he's just explained that. A change in the plan is that he got his car a little bit earlier than expected. He's put here as well that now he's considering applying for an apprenticeship as well as a backup option in case he doesn't get into university. So that's been a change to the plan. In terms of the medium-term goals, he said that he wants to get a part-time job, but that's not really a change in the plan there, so I wouldn't really credit that for anything. He's just repeating what he's already put earlier on in his work. He says that he wants to rent a house. Again, he's just explaining why that's important. Perhaps if you were considering going to Huddersfield University and living at home, and then recently you've decided that you want to move away, and it was a new thing, a new idea that you wanted to rent a house, then you could put that in the changes to initial plan. But he'd already mentioned about renting a house a little earlier on in his work, so it contradicts it as a change. Obviously, if you change what you want to do in terms of your university course, or in terms of let me just say this again. If you change what you want to do in terms of how you're going to study and how you're going to learn, so for example, if you've decided to do an apprenticeship in accountancy, whereas before you were looking at a university course, obviously that's going to make a change in your medium time frame, because if you went to university, it'd work differently. You'd have a placement and then you'd have to find your own job. But maybe if you went on an apprenticeship, there's a guaranteed job with it, and you could think about the career progression there. If you've changed what course you want to do entirely, then that's going to affect your medium term time frame as well, because you'll be reaching for a different career goal, so that can go in there. The thing that needs to be remembered about this section is that you're just discussing any changes that you're making. Don't put anything else in there. It's just new things, new changes, new ideas. It's showing that progression in your thinking. The resource section is something that you can complete now, because it's basically just listing the things that you think you're going to need in order to achieve your goals. So this student has said that they want more time to think carefully about the decision, and that they'll need money. So across both, they've basically just said, as a resource, I need time and money. That's fine, but I'd expect a little bit more. Think more specifically about what you might actually need. So some of you might need work experience, which means you might need release time from college to go and take part in that work experience. Some of you might need to get a particular grade, and you know that you're struggling, so you're going to need to go to support sessions to try and improve your grade. That would be a resource you'd need in achieving your objective. For some of you, if you want to link it back to money, if you're wanting to go to a university that's a little bit further afield, you might need a car so that you can get to work and so that you can come home. That would be a resource that you could mention. So there's quite a few more tangible things. You can explain the money and time thing in a little bit more detail. This section, you can make a little bit of progress with it now. For when do I expect to finish, all you need to pop in these boxes are the time frames that you wrote for your SMART targets. So I intend to meet this objective within 6 months. I intend to meet this objective within 3 years. That's how long I need for it. That's all you need to put in that box. In this box here, you need to put the original date that you started when you set your original objectives, and you need to put the date that you've been working on this today. We'll do the final box when we've completed that middle section that I explained to you we're going to come back to after we've done P6 and had a little bit more development time. So you need the original date that you started writing on this document and today's date.